Sarah Martinez never thought her morning jog through downtown San would change everything. The 28-year-old nurse had taken the same route for 3 years, weaving through the quiet streets before her shift at the Naval Hospital. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon when she noticed the black sedan following her. At first, she dismissed it as paranoia. Living near a military base meant seeing unfamiliar vehicles regularly. But when the car made the same 3 turns she did, her heart began racing for reasons beyond exercise. Sarah ducked into a coffee shop, pretending to check her phone while watching through the window. The sedan parked across the street, its tinted windows hiding whoever sat inside. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her boyfriend. "Morning, beautiful, stay safe out there." Was a Navy SEAL, currently deployed somewhere she couldn't know. They had met 2 years ago at a friend's barbecue, and despite the challenges of military life, their relationship had grown strong. Sarah smiled at his message, her anxiety easing slightly. She decided to take a different route home, hoping to lose the mysterious followers. But as she turned onto Fifth Avenue, the sedan appeared again, this time pulling up beside her. The passenger window rolled down, revealing a man with cold eyes and a scar running down his left cheek. "Sarah Martinez?" he asked, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't place. Her training as a military nurse kicked in. Stay calm, assess the situation, look for exits. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The man smiled, but it held no warmth. "Get in the car, Miss Martinez. We need to talk about." Sarah's blood turned to ice. How did these strangers know about? His unit's operations were classified. Their relationship kept deliberately low profile for security reasons. She took a step backward, her hand moving instinctively toward the panic button on her keys. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The man's smile vanished. "Your boyfriend killed someone very important to us. Now you're going to help us find him." Before Sarah could react, the car door opened and another man emerged, larger than the first, with hands that looked like they could crush steel. Sarah turned to run, but found her path blocked by a third man who had appeared from nowhere. Her nurse training had prepared her for medical emergencies, but nothing had prepared her for this. "Please," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know anything about's work. He never tells me details." The man stepped closer. "That's about to change. You see, your boyfriend and his team hit one of our operations in Somalia last month. They took something that belongs to us and killed my brother in the process." Sarah's mind raced. Had been deployed for 6 weeks, but she knew better than to ask questions about his missions. The families of special operations personnel learned to live with uncertainty, to find comfort in not knowing the dangerous details of their loved one's work. "I can't help you," she said firmly. "Even if I wanted to, I don't have any way to contact him." The large man moved closer, and Sarah noticed the bulge under his jacket. These weren't just angry relatives seeking revenge. They were professionals, organized and prepared. The way they moved, the coordination of their approach, the fact that they knew her routine, this had been planned. "Here's what's going to happen," the man continued. "You're going to come with us. You're going to make a phone call to your boyfriend's family. You're going to tell them you're in trouble and need to come home immediately." Sarah shook her head. "His family doesn't have any way to reach him either. That's not how it works." "Then we'll find another way," the man said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "But you're coming with us either way." That's when Sarah noticed the couple walking their dog on the opposite sidewalk. She had one chance. Taking a deep breath, she screamed as loud as she could, "Help me! Call 911. The couple looked up, startled. The man with the dog immediately pulled out his phone. Sarah used the momentary distraction to break free from the loose circle the men had formed around her. She ran toward the couple, but the large man was faster than she expected. His hand grabbed her arm, spinning her around. That's when she saw it, the small black pistol in his other hand. The barrel touched her temple, cold and unmistakable. "That was a mistake," he whispered. The couple across the street stood frozen, the man still holding his phone but unable to move. Sarah realized with growing horror that these people weren't just after. They were willing to kill innocent civilians to get to him. "Walk to the car," the gunman ordered. "Slowly, and if you try anything like that again, those people over there will die because of you." Sarah's legs felt like lead as she moved toward the black sedan. Her mind frantically searched for options, but with a gun to her head and innocent bystanders at risk, she felt completely trapped. As they reached the car, she caught sight of her reflection in the window, a terrified woman whose only crime was loving a man who served his country. The car door opened, and Sarah found herself being pushed inside. As the sedan pulled away from the curb, she watched the couple with the dog growing smaller in the distance. They were probably calling 911 right now, but Sarah knew it would be too late. Whatever had done in Somalia, whatever he had taken or whoever he had killed, these men were deadly serious about making him pay, and they were going to use her as bait. The abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Sand felt like a tomb. Sarah had been tied to a metal chair for 6 hours, her wrists raw from the rope. The man, who she had learned was named, paced back and forth while speaking rapidly in what sounded like Russian into his phone. The large man sat cleaning his pistol with mechanical precision. Every few minutes, he would glance at Sarah with eyes that held no emotion whatsoever. She had seen that look before in the trauma ward, the complete absence of empathy that came with repeated exposure to violence. "Your boyfriend should have minded his own business," said after ending his call. "The brothers have been running weapons through Somalia for 15 years. We never bothered Americans. Americans never bothered us." Sarah's throat was dry, but she forced herself to speak. "I told you I don't know anything about his missions." Laughed bitterly. "Petty Officer First Class, SEAL Team 6. 2 tour in Afghanistan, 1 in Syria, currently deployed with Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Should I continue?" The detailed knowledge chilled Sarah to the bone. These men had been watching, studying him. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was a calculated operation. "6 weeks ago, your boyfriend's team raided our compound outside Mogadishu," continued. "They were looking for AL weapons, but they found something else, something that belonged to my family." He pulled out a photograph and held it in front of Sarah's face. It showed a young man, maybe 25, with same cold eyes. "My brother put 3 bullets in his chest." Sarah stared at the photo, her mind struggling to reconcile the gentle man she loved with the killer these people described. Had nightmares sometimes, would wake up sweating and reaching for weapons that weren't there. But he never talked about the specifics of what haunted him. "Wasn't armed," said quietly. "He was trying to surrender when your boyfriend executed him." "That's not true," Sarah said, surprising herself with her firmness. "Wouldn't do that. He follows rules of engagement." Looked up from his weapon. "Rules?" He laughed, a sound like grinding concrete. "We have video, little nurse. Would you like to see how your boyfriend murders unarmed men?" Before Sarah could respond, phone rang again. This time the conversation was in English. "Yes, we have her." "No, not yet. I understand the timeline." When he hung up, his expression had changed. The cold calculation was replaced by something that looked almost like panic. "Change of plans," he told. "The Americans are moving faster than we expected." Sarah's heart leaped. "What Americans?" Studied her for a long moment. "You really don't know, do you? Your government has been tracking us since the Somalia raid. They know about our operations, about you being taken." "Then they're coming for me," Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. "They're coming," agreed. "But not just for you. They want the hard drives your boyfriend stole from our compound. Information about our clients, our routes, our contacts in a dozen countries." Now Sarah understood. This wasn't just about revenge for a dead brother, and his team had stumbled onto something much bigger, an international arms-dealing network with connections that obviously reached high enough to worry the U.S. government. "Doesn't have any hard drives," Sarah said. "Even if he did, he wouldn't tell me about them." "Maybe not directly," said. "But SEAL wives have been known to receive packages, gifts, things that their husbands can't officially send through military channels." Sarah's mind raced through every package, every gift had sent during his deployment. Flowers for her birthday, a necklace he bought in Morocco, a carved wooden box from Somalia. Saw the recognition in her eyes. "Ah, there it is. What did he send you from Africa?" "Just a jewelry box," Sarah said quickly, too quickly. Moved closer, the clean pistol now in his hand. "Where is this jewelry box now?" Sarah's apartment was 20 minutes away. If she told them, they would have what they wanted, but would they still need her alive? If she didn't tell them, they would likely torture her until she broke. Either way, the wooden box had sent contained more than sentimental value. "I threw it away," she lied. "We had a fight over the phone last week. I was angry and threw out everything that reminded me of him." backhanded her across the face, the ring on his finger opening a cut on her cheek. "Don't insult my intelligence. You're wearing the necklace he sent you. You don't throw away gifts from men you love." Blood trickled down Sarah's face, but she met his gaze steadily. "Believe whatever you want. The box is gone." Pulled out his phone again, this time showing Sarah a video feed. Her heart stopped. It was her apartment building, viewed from across the street. She could see her own windows on the 3rd floor. "My colleagues are already inside your apartment," said. "They've been searching for an hour. When they find the box, and they will find it, I won't need you alive anymore." Sarah closed her eyes, trying not to think about the wooden box hidden in her bedroom closet, wrapped in the sweater had left behind. Inside were the usual tourist trinkets, carved elephants, a beaded bracelet, but apparently something else as well. A loud bang echoed through the warehouse, followed by shouting in Russian. Immediately moved to a window, his weapon ready. Spoke rapidly into his phone, his face growing pale as he listened to the response. "What is it?" Sarah asked. Looked at her with something that might have been respect. "Your boyfriend is very good at his job. My men at your apartment are dead." "Is here?" Sarah's heart pounded with hope and terror. "Not just," said grimly. "DEVGRU Team 8, Navy Criminal Investigative Service, probably half of Naval Special Warfare Command. Your kidnapping just became an act of war against the United States military." More sounds came from outside, vehicles, voices, the distinct sound of tactical teams taking positions. Sarah realized that whatever was in that wooden box was important enough to risk an international incident to recover. "Here's what's going to happen," said, moving behind Sarah's chair and pressing his gun to her head. "They're going to want to negotiate. They're going to offer prisoner exchanges, money, safe passage. But what they really want is the information your boyfriend stole." "And what do you want?" Sarah asked. Was quiet for a moment. "I want my brother back. Since that's impossible, I want the man who killed him to suffer like I'm suffering." The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of Sarah's rapid breathing and his finger tapping against the trigger of his pistol. Somewhere outside, and his team were planning their assault. Sarah found herself caught between two groups of highly trained killers, each convinced they were fighting for justice. The man's grip tightened on his weapon. "They're going to come through that door soon," he whispered in Sarah's ear. "And when they do, you need to understand something. I have nothing left to lose." The voice that came through the megaphone was calm, professional, and unmistakably. "This is Petty Officer, United States Navy. I know you can hear me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears despite her fear. Even in this nightmare, the sound of his voice felt like salvation. Through the dirty warehouse windows, she could see movement in the darkness outside, shadows that moved too purposefully to be anything but trained operators. Pressed the gun harder against Sarah's temple. "Your boyfriend is either very brave or very stupid," he whispered. "I'd like to speak with Sarah Martinez," continued over the loudspeaker. "Let me know she's safe, and we can discuss this situation like reasonable men." Laughed harshly. "Reasonable? Was it reasonable when you executed my unarmed brother?" He moved to a broken window, keeping his weapon trained on Sarah. He shouted, "Come close enough so I can see your face, and I'll let you speak to your girlfriend." A long silence followed. Sarah could imagine the heated discussion happening among the tactical teams outside. No professional would expose themselves in a hostage situation, but wasn't just any professional. He was a man in love fighting to save the person who mattered most to him. A spotlight suddenly illuminated a figure walking slowly across the empty lot in front of the warehouse. Moved with his hands clearly visible, wearing full tactical gear but no helmet. Even at a distance, Sarah could see the determined set of his shoulders, the way he scanned for threats while appearing to surrender himself. "That's close enough," called out when was 50 yards away. "Sarah, tell him you're alive." "I'm okay," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking. "Don't do anything stupid." His laugh carried across the distance, warm and familiar. "When have I ever done anything stupid?" Despite everything, Sarah almost smiled. His idea of reasonable risk had always been different from most people's. On their second date, he had talked a drunk driver out of his car using nothing but conversation and patience. On their first anniversary, he had rappelled down the side of their apartment building to surprise her with breakfast when she was sick with the flu. "You have something that belongs to me," called out. "Hard drives you stole from Somalia." "I have a lot of things from Somalia," replied. You'll need to be more specific. Patience snapped. Don't play games, financial records, client lists, shipping manifests, everything you took from my compound. Ah, those files, said, his voice carrying clearly in the still night air. The ones documenting arms sales to terrorist organizations across East Africa. The ones showing payments to corrupt officials in 6 different countries. Those files. Those files, confirmed. Was quiet for a moment. Here's the thing, I didn't steal those files. I was ordered to recover them by the United States government. They're evidence of war crimes, terrorism funding, and treason. Even if I wanted to give them back to you, they're way above my pay grade now. Sarah watched's face grow darker. This wasn't the answer he had hoped for. If the files were already in government hands, killing wouldn't retrieve them. But she could see in his expression that revenge was becoming more important than recovery. Your brother, continued, was armed when my team encountered him. He had an AK-47 and was firing at my men when I neutralized the threat. I have helmet camera footage if you'd like to see it. Liar, screamed, his composure finally cracking. Was a computer specialist, he never carried weapons. Was also coordinating with AL fighters who killed 12 civilians the week before our raid, said quietly. Including 6 children. Whatever else he wasn't innocent. Sarah felt the gun barrel tremble against her head. Was losing control, which made him infinitely more dangerous. She had seen enough trauma cases to know that people in extreme emotional distress could become unpredictable in deadly ways. You're lying to justify murder, said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. I'm telling you the truth, replied. And here's another truth. I've got 8 SEALs, 4 FBI agents, and a Naval Criminal Investigative Service team surrounding this building. You're outnumbered and out of options. Looked around wildly, as if noticing his tactical situation for the first time. Had moved to a defensive position near the rear door, but his expression suggested he understood their predicament as well. 2 men against a specialized military unit was not favorable odds. But I've also got something you don't have, said, his voice regaining some strength. I've got the woman you love, and unless you walk away right now, she's going to die. That's not going to happen, said simply. The confidence in his voice made Sarah's heart soar and her stomach clench simultaneously. She knew that tone. It was the voice used when he had already decided on a course of action. Whatever was about to happen, he had planned for it. You think your SEAL training makes you untouchable? Asked. You think because you can kill people in foreign countries, you're safe at home. I think, said slowly, that you made a mistake when you touched her. The warehouse suddenly exploded into chaos. Smoke grenades crashed through several windows simultaneously, filling the space with thick, choking clouds. Sarah heard the distinctive pop-pop-pop of grenades, their disorienting noise and light designed to confuse defenders. Spun around, trying to track multiple threats at once. His gun moved away from Sarah's head for just a moment as he aimed toward one of the windows. That moment was all the opportunity she needed. Drawing on 2 years of self-defense classes had insisted she take, Sarah threw herself backward in the chair, tipping it over and rolling away from position. The rope around her wrists had loosened during hours of struggling, and adrenaline gave her the strength to slip one hand free. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions, not the wild spraying of amateurs, but the precise, controlled shots of professionals eliminating threats. Sarah kept her head down and crawled toward what she hoped was cover behind a concrete pillar. Through the smoke and noise, she heard screaming in Russian, then's voice also shouting, then silence. The smoke began to clear, revealing tactical lights cutting through the darkness. Sarah called out, I'm here, behind the pillar. His voice much closer now. Sarah, stay down until I say it's clear. She could hear movement, the careful footsteps of operators clearing the space room by room. Someone was moaning in pain, probably one of the Russians, wounded but alive. The professionals had done their job with minimal casualties. Clear, someone shouted. Clear, came the response from multiple directions. Finally's voice, all clear, baby, you can look up now. Sarah raised her head and saw him standing 10 feet away, his rifle lowered but ready. His face was streaked with camouflage paint, but his eyes were bright with relief. Behind him, she could see other tactical personnel securing, and both wounded but breathing. Crossed to her in 3 quick strides, dropping his weapon and pulling her into his arms. Sarah collapsed against him, finally allowing herself to cry. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service debriefing room felt sterile and cold after the warehouse nightmare. Sarah sat across from Agent Hayes, a sharp-eyed woman who had been asking the same questions in different ways for 2 hours. Remained beside her, still in his tactical gear but with the face paint cleaned off. "Let's go through it one more time," Agent Hayes said patiently. "The wooden box sent from Somalia, you said it contained carved animals and jewelry, nothing else." Sarah looked at, who nodded encouragingly. "There was a small USB drive hidden inside one of the elephants," she admitted. "I found it by accident when I dropped the carving and it broke." "And you didn't think to mention this to anyone?" Hayes asked. "I thought it was music or photos," Sarah said defensively. "Soldiers sometimes put personal files on drives when they can't use official channels to send them. I didn't know it contained classified information." Agent Hayes made notes on her tablet. The drive contained copies of financial records organization kept on their arms dealing operations. Bank transfers, client communications, shipping routes. It's going to shut down their entire network across East Africa. Squeezed Sarah's hand. "You did the right thing by hiding it. If they had gotten those files back, hundreds of weapons would have ended up in terrorist hands." "What happens to end?" Sarah asked. "They'll be prosecuted under federal terrorism statutes," Hayes replied. "Kidnapping, conspiracy, weapons trafficking. They're looking at life in federal prison without parole." Sarah felt a complex mix of relief and sadness. His brother might have been a criminal, but his grief had been real. The cycle of violence that had started in Somalia and reached all the way to San seemed pointless and tragic. "There's something else we need to discuss," Agent Hayes continued. "This organization has cells in 12 countries. The takedown we're planning will happen simultaneously across multiple time zones, but there might be reprisals." "Meaning?" asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Meaning Miss Martinez could still be a target. These people don't forget, and they don't forgive. We're recommending relocation through the Witness Protection Program." Sarah's heart sank. "For how long?" "Indefinitely. New identities, new lives, complete separation from everything you've known." Was quiet for a long moment. Sarah could see him processing the implications. His military career, her nursing job, their families, their friends, everything would have to be abandoned. "What about service commitment?" Sarah asked. "Petty officer has 18 months left on his current enlistment," Hayes said. "Given the circumstances, the Navy is prepared to offer an honorable discharge with full benefits." "You'd give up the SEALs for me?" Sarah whispered. Turned to face her fully. "Sarah, I'd give up everything for you, but that's not what this is about. These people hurt you because of who I am, what I do. Maybe it's time for me to find a different way to serve." Agent Hayes cleared her throat. "There is another option. It's unconventional, but given petty officer, specialized skills, and Miss Martinez's medical background, you could both work for us." "Work how?" asked. "NCIS has a growing need for operatives who can handle overseas assignments. Couples who can maintain cover identities while investigating military-related crimes. You'd still serve your country, but in a different capacity." Sarah felt a spark of hope. "We'd be together." "You'd be partners in every sense. The work would be dangerous, but you're both already proven under pressure. And it would give you new identities, new lives, without having to completely abandon your sense of purpose." Looked at Sarah intently. "What do you think?" Sarah considered the offer. The past 24 hours had shown her a strength she didn't know she possessed. She had survived kidnapping, torture, and a hostage situation. More importantly, she had discovered something about herself, and their love could endure extraordinary pressure. "What kind of assignments?" she asked. Agent Hayes smiled. "Last month, 3 Marines disappeared in the Philippines while investigating drug trafficking on their base. Local authorities claim they deserted, but their families don't believe it. We need people who can go in as civilian contractors, get close to the other military personnel, find out what really happened." "And the month before that," she continued, "a Navy medical officer in Bahrain started treating an unusual number of respiratory infections among submarine crews. She suspected chemical exposure, but was transferred before she could complete her investigation. We need a nurse who can ask the right questions without raising suspicions." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. These weren't just spy games. They were opportunities to help military families find answers, to protect service members from corruption and cover-ups. "We'd have to leave," San said. "Leave our families, our friends." "For a while," Hayes agreed. "But not forever. Deep cover assignments usually last 6 months to 2 years. Between missions, you'd have downtime to visit family, maintain some connections to your old lives." Sarah looked around the sterile room, thinking about her apartment, her job at the hospital, her routine life that had been shattered in a single morning. Maybe that life had been too small for who she was becoming. She said slowly, "Do you remember what you told me on our first date, about wanting to make a difference that mattered?" He smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen since the rescue. "I said I didn't want to just follow orders. I wanted to choose missions that meant something. This would let us do that together." Looked at Agent Hayes. "What's the timeline?" 6 weeks of training at counter-surveillance, advanced combat tactics for Sarah, investigative techniques for both of you. Language training depending on your first assignment. Then you disappear into your new lives." Sarah thought about lying wounded in a hospital bed, probably planning his next revenge even as he recovered. She thought about his brother, killed in a foreign land while facilitating terrorism. She thought about the arms dealers, the corrupt officials, the military personnel who betrayed their oaths for money. "I want to do it," she said firmly. Studied her face carefully. "You're sure, once we start this, there's no going back to normal life?" Sarah laughed, surprising herself. "Normal ended when someone put a gun to my head this morning. I'm not the same person I was 12 hours ago." Agent Hayes closed her tablet. "I'll need formal answers within 48 hours. Use that time to think it through, discuss it privately. This isn't a decision you can undo." As they left the NCIS building, took Sarah's hand. The sand skyline looked different now, less like home and more like a starting point for something new. "Are you really okay with this?" asked as they walked to his truck. Sarah stopped and turned to face him. "Remember how you used to have nightmares? How you'd wake up feeling like you couldn't talk about what you'd seen, what you'd done?" Nodded. "Now I understand that feeling," Sarah said. "I understand the weight of secrets, the responsibility that comes with dangerous knowledge. I don't want to go back to pretending the world is safe when I know how quickly everything can change." Pulled her close, and Sarah felt the strength in his arms, the steadiness of his heartbeat. Tomorrow they would start planning their new lives. Tonight, they would hold each other and be grateful they had survived to make that choice. 6 months later, Sarah adjusted the stethoscope around her neck and checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror of the Naval Medical Center in Naples, Italy. Her hair was shorter now, dyed auburn instead of her natural black, and colored contacts had changed her brown eyes to green. According to her cover identity, she was Dr. Sarah Collins, a civilian contractor investigating reported health issues among NATO personnel. Was stationed 3 miles away at the Naval Support Facility, working as a security consultant while investigating the disappearance of 2 intelligence analysts. They had been in Naples for 8 weeks, living separate lives publicly while sharing a small apartment in the old city after hours. The work was exactly as challenging as Agent Hayes had promised. Their first assignment in the Philippines had taken 4 months to complete, ultimately uncovering a human trafficking ring that had been using marine transportation to move victims between islands. The case had ended with 17 arrests and the rescue of 43 women and children. Sarah's medical background had proven invaluable for getting close to other healthcare workers, whilst military experience opened doors that would have remained closed to civilian investigators. Together, they had developed an effective partnership that went far beyond their personal relationship. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Dinner at 8, found something interesting at work today, M." Sarah smiled and typed back, "Your place or mine?" It was their code for asking whether the information was sensitive enough to require their secured apartment. "Mine," came the quick reply. Sarah finished her shift at the medical center and took a deliberately indirect route home, checking for surveillance as had taught her. The training had transformed her from a victim into someone capable of detecting and evading threats. She could now spot a tail from 6 blocks away, disable electronic surveillance equipment, and had become an excellent marksman with both pistols and rifles. The apartment had rented under his cover identity was furnished, but strategically chosen, 3rd floor with multiple exit routes, sight lines to the street, and neighbors who minded their own business. Sarah found him sitting at the kitchen table with classified files spread out in front of him. "What did you find?" she asked, kissing his cheek as she looked over his shoulder. "The two missing analysts weren't investigating drug trafficking like we thought," said grimly. "They were looking into weapons transfers, specifically American military equipment that's been showing up in the hands of Italian organized crime families." Sarah sat down across from him. The same kind of weapons trafficking organization was involved in. "Exactly, but this time the corruption is coming from inside our own military. Someone with high-level access has been selling equipment to the Camorra crime syndicate." Sarah studied the photographs had taken of shipping manifests and inventory reports. "How much equipment are we talking about?" "Enough to outfit a small army. Night vision systems, body armor, military-grade communications equipment, even some classified electronic warfare devices. Street value of at least $20 million. And the missing analysts got too close to whoever's responsible." Nodded. "I think they identified the source and tried to arrange a meeting to gather evidence. Instead, they walked into a trap." Sarah felt the familiar chill that came with realizing how deep a conspiracy might go. "Any idea who on the American side is involved?" "That's where your medical access might help," said. "The equipment thefts have been happening over 18 months, always coinciding with major medical shipments to the same facilities you've been investigating." Sarah understood immediately. Someone's using medical supply deliveries to smuggle weapons out of military facilities. The medical emergencies you've been tracking aren't accidents, they're cover stories for the thefts. Which means whoever's responsible has access to both military supply chains and medical personnel schedules, concluded. They spent the next 2 hours reviewing files and building connections between seemingly unrelated incidents. The pattern that emerged was sophisticated and terrifying, a network that reached into multiple levels of military and medical hierarchies. Sarah's phone rang at 10:30 p.m. The caller ID showed Dr. Foster, the chief medical officer she had been working with at the naval facility. "Dr. Collins, I'm sorry to call so late, but we have an emergency situation. 3 sailors were brought in with severe respiratory distress. The symptoms don't match anything in their medical histories." "I'll be right there," Sarah said, already reaching for her jacket. Grabbed her arm. "Wait, this could be a setup. The timing is too convenient." Sarah considered the possibility. But if it's real, those sailors need help, and if it's a trap, it means we're getting close to something important. "Then we do this together," said, reaching for his own equipment. "I'm coming with you as additional security support." They drove separately to the medical facility, maintaining their cover identities while staying in radio contact. The naval hospital was unusually busy for late evening, with several ambulances in the parking area and security personnel at entrances. Dr. Foster met Sarah at the emergency department entrance. "Thank God you're here. We've never seen anything like this. The sailors all served on the same supply ship, but they showed symptoms 6 hours after their shift ended." Sarah followed Dr. Foster into the treatment area, nodding that had positioned himself in the hallway where he could observe both the medical bay and the main entrances. The 3 patients were conscious, but struggling to breathe, their symptoms consistent with chemical exposure. "What were they handling during their shift?" Sarah asked while examining the first patient. "Medical supplies," Dr. Foster replied. "Antibiotics, surgical equipment, some experimental medications for field hospitals." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Experimental medications, what kind?" "I don't have the complete manifest," Dr. Foster said, "but I know they were handling containers marked for special operations medical teams." Sarah felt pieces clicking into place. Special operations medical supplies would require the highest security clearances and would rarely be questioned by customs or security personnel. They would be perfect cover for smuggling stolen weapons. She was taking blood samples when her radio crackled with voice. "Multiple vehicles approaching the facility. Black sedans, no official markings." Sarah's hands never paused in her work, but her mind was racing. If this was a trap, they needed evidence before they could escape. If it wasn't a trap, they might be about to witness the next phase of the smuggling operation. "Dr. Foster," Sarah said carefully, "I need to see the complete manifest for what these men were handling." Of course, it's in my office. Follow me. As they walked toward the administrative area, Sarah saw through a window, apparently conducting a routine security patrol, but actually positioning himself to intercept anyone trying to enter or leave the building. Dr. Foster's office was on the second floor, overlooking the parking area. As she opened her filing cabinet, Sarah looked out the window and saw 4 black sedans surrounding his position. Men in expensive suits were getting out of the vehicles. "Dr. Foster," Sarah said quietly, "those men outside, are they expected?" Dr. Foster looked out the window and her face went pale. "No, security wasn't of any visit tonight." Sarah's radio crackled again. "Company's here. Looks like our investigation just got more complicated." Through the window, Sarah watched as the suited men approached. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read body language. He was calm, professional, giving nothing away while simultaneously assessing threats and planning responses. "Dr. Foster, I need you to listen carefully," Sarah said. "Those men are here because of the investigation into missing military equipment. The sailors who got sick tonight were exposed to something that was being smuggled out in medical supply containers." Dr. Foster stared at her in confusion. "Dr. Collins, what are you talking about?" "I'm not really a civilian contractor," Sarah said, making a decision that could end their mission or save their lives. "I'm a federal investigative agent, and right now we're both in serious danger." The sound of gunfire from the parking lot punctuated her words. Sarah grabbed Dr. Foster's arm and pulled her away from the window just as bullets shattered the glass where they had been standing. His voice came through the radio, calm despite the chaos. "Buildings compromised, multiple shooters, get out now." Sarah looked around the office frantically, her training taking over. The filing cabinet, the evidence, the patients downstairs who needed medical attention, everything was important, but staying alive was more important. "Is there another way out of the building?" she asked Dr. Foster, who was staring at the broken window in shock. "Service elevator to the basement," Dr. Foster whispered, "connects to the utility tunnels." Sarah grabbed the medical files and her radio. "We're going underground, basement level south side of the building." "Copy that, I'll meet you there." As they ran toward the service elevator, Sarah realized that their careful investigation had just become a fight for survival. The missing analysts had probably discovered the same evidence she now carried in her hands. The question was whether she would live long enough to make sure their deaths hadn't been in vain. The elevator descended into darkness, carrying them toward an uncertain confrontation with the very corruption they had been sent to expose.